Hello, hello. Welcome to What's Working Now. I'm your host, Katie Richardson. Today we have a very fascinating guest. Why is he fascinating? Because honestly, I just met him. I know very little about our guest today. I was on Facebook for another reason. His profile popped up and I was like, I'm booking this guy. I hardly know anything about him. And you and I are going to get to know the awesome and the amazing Seth Ellsworth on today's show. Seth, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Katie. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, super. Yeah. And one of the first things that you did tell me, you like to be elusive. You don't like labels, and I totally understand those things. But the few things I do know about you is you're 6'10". Mm-hmm. You know, that's kind of tall. You've been a coach to business owners, entrepreneurs for 12 plus years, and you describe yourself as I am my craft. That's what you put in your bio to me today, which I love. I just love it. I love all those things. And it just makes me want to know so much more about you. So a question that I want to ask you that I think will help me come to understand you and the audience is, tell us about a moment that has really shaped who you are today.
Awesome. There's been a bunch of those, and I appreciate every single one of them because life is an adventure.
Yeah.
And these moments of what would you call them? Identity crisis moments.
Yeah.
Of transition, of an intersection. My biggest, I can't say my biggest, but 2008 for me. This was almost 5 years after my basketball career blew up. I was at a Division I school, and I had injuries. So I had a boyhood dream to play basketball at this particular school, and I made it. I was there, but I wasn't there because I didn't believe that I belonged, that I was good enough, and I wasn't aware at the time that I believed these things, and they wrecked me. And this is how it showed up for me. This is honestly, it's still raw. The emotion is raw. And if I give you the short version, I might not cry. But if I give you the long version, guaranteed tears every single time.
Hey, I'm a crier, so I'm there with you.
So I'm a dude. I cry a lot, especially when I'm telling these stories. But imagine having a dream and you achieve that dream, but only kind of. Well, you're in the dream, but the dream itself becomes a nightmare. That's exactly what happened to me. Like, I worked my whole life as an athlete, as a basketball player, and I was good, and I was tall. I was 6'10", and I could shoot the lights out, and I was the best shooter on every team I was ever on. And at that day and age, it was really weird to have a really tall guy that could shoot the ball well, because that was not a normal thing in basketball back then. I don't know if you're a basketball fan or not, but I didn't fit in terms of a normal basketball scheme, an offense and a defense, et cetera. And I internalized this. I didn't fit in. I didn't fit into my world. I didn't fit into the team. I didn't fit into the school. I didn't know who I was. And this is how this showed up for me. Stress fractures in both feet, in the same exact bone in both feet. Literally, you'd look on an x-ray and it's the same injury in both feet. Figure that out. The stress fractures looked exactly the same in both feet, in the same bone. Then I had a bulging disc in my back, stress related. There's a common theme there. And I could not handle, I'm extremely pain tolerant. I almost died when I was 12 from a ruptured appendix. My body had been septic for 7 days. Sheesh. Which is like my guts rotting themselves from the inside out.
Wow.
And not only did I not die, which is a miracle, but I never complained. I just ate the pain. So pain to me is no big deal.
Right.
I can put up with ridiculous amounts of pain when I am committed to a goal.
I hope in basketball, all the entrepreneurs are listening to that, because that is definitely a characteristic I see amongst
100%.
Entrepreneurs that I work, high performers.
And there's a dark side to this, as you know.
Yes. Yeah.
And as I've experienced myself in my life many times, you end up breaking everything else in your life.
Yep.
It's like you're committed to one goal, but then you lose everything else.
Yep.
Shoot. Yeah, I've been there.
Yep. Yeah.
And so I couldn't handle the pain anymore. Imagine trying to play basketball on broken feet and a bad back at a Division I level. I didn't tell anybody. I wasn't a scholarship player. I just literally walked on the team. This is how all this happened. I trained really hard, got as good as I could be. I walked into the gym. I literally walk into the gym. I play one game to 11 points. And that night, the coaches called me and said, hey, we want you to come out. One game. That's how good I was. I didn't realize this. I didn't internalize that.
Okay.
I had no perspective that, dude, you played one game and they want you to play for this Division I school after one game. I should have seen that as like a sign from God that like, hey, you belong here. Like you were born to do this. Nope.
But instead, your internal critic was saying what?
I can't believe this. It can't be true. I don't belong. This is too big for me. I'm not a scholarship player, so I'm just a walk-on. And there's that natural divide in athletics that we perceive as the athlete is like, I'm not one of them. I wasn't recruited since I was a junior in high school. My family moved a bunch of times. Like recruiting was not a thing. I had to do it all myself. And I did. And I got there and I achieved the goal. But we are like August before the season starts. Day one, I walk onto the court and I'm just doing a warm-up layup. And there's this pain in my left foot. Day one. Mind you, I've never had any injuries prior to this ever.
Wow.
So day one, warm-ups, which is about the least impact, exercise you could do. There's there's no strain on my body at all. And I have pain in my left foot. And then I switch over to the left side, doing off my right foot, pain. And my right foot, oh, this is really weird, but pain tolerant. I don't care. This is my dream. Like I'm going to go. And I end up almost murdering myself because of the pain, because it got so bad I could hardly walk. So my day would be go to practice 3 hours early because I had to get treatment on my back because I couldn't move. So I had to loosen up enough so where I can move at least so that I could practice. And then after practice, we got cold pools, more treatment for several hours, and I'm home laying on my back for the rest of the night. Like it was a 10-hour ordeal just so I could have a 3-hour window of practice every day for months. I didn't tell anybody about the pain I was in. I ate it. Like, why would I tell anybody?
Why would you tell? Why would you complain?
No, I would never complain.
You're not a complainer. Yeah.
It's like in business is the successful entrepreneur who's everything is going well, but his wife hates him and his kids don't want to be around him and nobody wants to know that. He doesn't tell anybody.
No.
Like we do this all the time. We have a hard time asking for help.
Yep.
And we don't have a great awareness of our weaknesses until they break things.
Like your foot. That's crazy.
That's right. Like my foot. And so these are all stress related, mind you.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. We go all the way through the season. And at the very end, they lost to Syracuse in Jerry McNamara had a 42-point game, which single-handedly beat us, which is lame because we had a really good team. And one of the best games ever in the NCAA tournament. Anyway, so they come home and I didn't travel with them because I was injured. So here's the kicker. I never got on the active roster because I was injured on day one. And they couldn't use that roster spot for me because they didn't know. So they took this other kid from tryouts that took my spot basically, which is sad, but true. So I never had the dream I had, the real dream that I had, Katie, was I just wanted to run out of the tunnel.
Yeah.
With a jersey on and my name on the back. Never got to. Never got to, but I was there.
You were there. You were right there.
I was there, but I never got to run out of the tunnel with my name, which means a lot to me. on
Yeah.
the back of my jersey. I don't know why that was my only, but that was my dream, really. It wasn't just basketball. It was like fight song, run out of the tunnel, name on my jersey.
Yeah. It's a moment of glory.
It was it. I mean, it's nice to hit
Yeah.
a 3-point shot and the crowd goes crazy, or you dunk on somebody or whatever. That's nice. But for whatever reason, like having my name on the back of my jersey back then, like in AAU and club teams, like they were still not common, and we didn't have names on the back. Names was for like school, like big time schools.
Okay.
If you have your name on your jersey, like you're a legit athlete, like you're a player.
Okay.
So it was more meaningful than it is now. Like my 12-year-old has Ellsworth on the back of his jersey. I'm like, how come he gets that? Like I never got that. But different times, right?
Yeah.
So I get to the point where I can't handle my dream. I'm in it, but it's become a nightmare because the pain is so excruciating. And here's where it gets crazy. I get emotional thinking about it. I am not a quitter. I am the farthest thing from quitting that you could possibly imagine. I'm a pit bull. I'm committed.
Yeah.
I don't give up ever. How in the world is this kid who had a dream his whole life supposed to give up the thing that he loves the most? I don't know. Like I felt like God literally put his hand in my life and opened the door for me to just walk into this opportunity, and I'm squandering it. And now I'm just like laughing in his face and be like, I can't do this. But I did. I couldn't handle the pain. It's like wishing for your dream to come true, and then you resenting that it actually did. It's the weirdest space to be in. Like I don't know. So I go on to Coach Cleveland. I'm like, dude, I'm out. He's like, what? That really sucks. He was sad. That was shocking to me because I had so beaten myself up with guilt and shame because I couldn't play my game because I was broken feet. Like, how well do you play basketball with broken feet? Anyone? Like, you can't. Yeah. I couldn't jump. I couldn't move well. So I not only did I feel not good enough, but I wasn't playing to my skill level.
Yeah.
And I went in there to Coach Cleveland, which I had told him one time that, my feet were bad, and he gave me like 2 weeks to recover. And then I lied and said, I'm good. I wasn't, and got worse. And I finally told him the truth, and he was sad. He's like, we had a lot of high hopes for you. Like, we weren't aware of you in the recruiting process, and you dropped right in our lap. And we were ecstatic. We thought you were like a gift to the program. And I was like, what? How's that possible? But I quit. And I went home, and this is where identity crisis shows up the very next morning. What do you do as a basketball player when all you do is play basketball? That's it. There's nothing left.
Like your whole life.
My whole life is just basketball. Now, granted, I knew I was more than that, but I hadn't been working on anything else.
No.
That's it. Like, I was doing school, kind of. I was luckily I'm smart in some things. I didn't try hard in school at all. I got like straight B's all the way through college. And graduated with like a 3.2, which is barely enough to open the door for grad school if I wanted to. Luckily, I don't.
Okay.
But I was coasting through college, never studying, never. I just didn't try hard because basketball was my thing. Was the whole.
Because all your focus, all your energy, all your momentum was in basketball.
100%.
Yeah.
This is where everything gets really bad, as if it wasn't already.
Oh, geez. Keep going.
The next morning I wake up, you stare at the ceiling and you're like, now what? And you don't have an answer. It's like you're calling out to God and nothing comes back. It's like, okay, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with myself. Like, it was the end of the semester. Like, the NCAA tournament happens towards the end of winter semester in college.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm done with my classes. At least there was a couple tests I needed to take. So I don't really have anything to do. And I'm staring up the ceiling. I distinctly remember this. Now what? Who am I?
Yikes.
And there's this emptiness that I will never forget. And it eats me to this day, like that feeling. So I just like, oh, to hell with it. I get out of bed, I put my shoes on, and I walk over to the gym. Because that's the only thing I know how to do. It's the only thing I thought I was good at. And I see some guys that I knew because I played with them all the time the previous summer, getting ready to try out for the basketball team. They were good dudes, good players. And I remember this time, the first day that I walked on the court as a basketball player, I went into the same gym and these same guys were there that I had been playing with. And they stopped and they looked at me because I had my garb on, my issue on, right?
Yeah.
And they looked at me in dismay because the day before I was playing with them. And then I walk onto the court, number 21, my favorite number. Finally got my number. They wouldn't give it to me in high school, but in college I got it, number 21. And they looked over at me and was like, hey, dude, you're one of us. How did you become one of them? I'll never forget that feeling. So now I'm not a basketball player anymore. I walk onto the same court. Dudes are there. Same dudes. And they look at me and I don't have my issue on. And they're like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, that's just a look they had on them. They didn't say anything.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what am I doing here? I just ran in with them again anyways. And in the very first game, I steal the ball. I run down the court on a, steal the ball, run down the court on a fast break. And I do this windmill dunk, which a windmill dunk is where you go like you double pump and you come around like this.
Okay.
And I just smashed it on somebody and I run back up the court. I realized there's no pain anywhere.
Wow.
There's no pain in my body. I had just quit my dreams the day before because of stress fractures that would not go away. And I couldn't jump like that the whole season. And the day after I quit my dream, I come down, windmill dunking on somebody's head. And I crumbled to the floor and I started crying like a little baby once this realization comes crashing over me. And the dudes look at me like, dude, you've lost it, man. Like, what's wrong with you? I didn't care. And that sent me on my identity crisis. I don't know how to make sense of that. My body had injuries that you see on an X-ray and they're gone like this. That didn't make any sense other than I guess that's God telling me that he didn't want me to play basketball. It's the only sense I can make of that. So you imagine how that is. Where now you've got God in the equation where I felt like he was the one who opened the opportunity enough to shut it in my face. And now I really don't know who I am. It's like, I can't go and reopen that door. So 6 months later, I'm playing volleyball. Starts a whole nother story. Like, I'm an athlete and I play volleyball. It was fun, but wasn't basketball. Wasn't my passion.
Yeah.
College athletics are a grind. Like, you think you like a sport, do it for 10 hours a day. It's a grind. And I didn't love volleyball enough. So that sent me on a journey. What I figured out, Katie, is that my mind created those injuries as an excuse because I did not feel good enough to exist in that world. And my mind is that powerful, and so is yours. and anyone else's that's listening to this. It can create and it can destroy.
Yes.
According to our system of belief, more particularly our system of belief of ourselves, of how we see ourselves fitting into whatever it is that we've got going on. So that has become a theme for me, which has been wildly simplified over my life. Because as you know, being a coach, there are so many philosophies of what you can do with these types of things in order to heal and get past in the mindset. And my stuff has been so radically simplified over the years. And so that was 2003. So by 2008, I'm like, I don't want to be here anymore. I'm so in a hole. Like I'm at a school where it was a Christian school.
Uh-huh.
And everybody's happy. And they have a smile on their face. And they're clean shaven. And
they're living the perfect life.
Yeah. And
they all fit in with each other.
And I wasn't feeling any of that.
Yeah.
And in 2008, I didn't want to be here anymore. And I didn't want to be in this life anymore. But everybody else thought I was like the guy.
Sure.
You know, the ruggedly handsome 6'10" guy with all these talents that has all these responsibilities that people appreciate. And inside I was wrecked. I didn't know who I was. I was addicted. I was addicted to pornography at the time. That was my way of self-soothing and medicating.
Sure. Numbing the pain.
Nobody knew that. I was numbing out all the time and hiding it and getting worse and worse. And I was dating certain girls, and one in particular, true story, I got engaged to her just before this. I got engaged to her, and she broke off the engagement 2-3 weeks later. And I found out she was lesbian.
Wow.
And I'm like, did I do that? I'm sorry.
Oh.
That was an interesting time, but I was broke. I couldn't afford $160 rent.
Wow.
I was in this house that split it with 5 other guys. My portion was $160. Didn't have it. I was super in debt. This was 2008. I had some real estate stuff blow up. I was like $70,000+ in debt as a college kid.
Wow.
It was a mess. It was everywhere was a mess. I still didn't know who I was or what I wanted to do, but I had ambition. Like I had that for miles. I just didn't know what direction to point it in. So what ended up happening is I pointed it at myself. And
also something a lot of CEOs and entrepreneurs do, right? It feels justified to beat yourself up, right? Because that's what the good guy's going to do. He's not going to beat other people up, but that anger,
he's the sacrificial
rage,
lamb.
That frustration, it's got to go somewhere, and you're not going to beat everybody else up around you. So you're just going to start beating yourself up.
So leap year day.
Like that probably became an addiction as well, right?
100%. The guilt and the shame from that, I am still recovering from this in some ways.
Yeah.
Especially the shame side of it. This has showed up in my life multiple times. Every time it shows up, I peel off some more layers, and now we're doing pretty well. But back then it was not good at the deepest part of my soul. Everything was dark and agitated and hidden. On the outset, I'm Seth. I'm charismatic. I'm the leader. I'm just the natural guy that people gravitate towards. Yeah. It could not be more opposite internally. And until February 29th, which was leap year day, ironically, this is fantastic for marketing because the biggest leap of my life happened on that day.
Wow.
But I literally can't make this up. Like it's written in stone. This happened on leap year day in 2008. I'm ruthlessly committed to certain things. And one thing was when I graduated high school, way back in the year 2000, my number one goal out of the 37 goals that I had, the number one goal was to write in my journal every day. That was the habit that I wanted. That was my trophy habit. Because everybody I knew that was successful did that. Wrote in their journal every day. And I understood why, and I wanted it, and I loved it when I did it. Couldn't for the life of me conquer that one habit. And this became like the poster child of how Seth cannot do what he said he's going to do. I can't keep my word to save my life. It's like, how I'm going to write in my journal. No, you're not. That's my internal dialogue. That was 8 years of fighting myself. Now, I had nothing left in my life to fight for. There was nothing. So on leap year day, February 29th, I have this journal, which mocks me by just looking at it. It's like, dude, you suck at writing in your journal.
Wow.
And I'm a competitor. I'm like, bullshit. I'm going to fight this. And it was one of those nights where I had a 4-day streak going, and this was about to be 5. That was a lot for me, Katie. 5 days, I never hit more than that, like hardly ever. And I'd usually fall off the rails at some point after that. And so here I have this microcosm going on in my head. Come on, Seth, you can do it. No, dude, what are you going to write in your journal about? Like, you hate yourself. Your life sucks. What do you write in your journal when you hate yourself? Well, I didn't understand that you wrote in your journal the things that you hate so that you get them out of your mind and you can process and all this. I didn't understand that part of it. I thought you were writing your journal for your posterity to let them know how awesome you are as a human. Because why would you want them to understand? Dude, my dad was addicted to porn, and what?
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't want to know that. So I didn't write it. And so ironic. But journaling became a way for me to shame myself.
Wow.
By not telling the truth.
And continue to hide from yourself.
And continue to hide.
Wow. Of course you didn't want to do it.
Not right. Why would I?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to shame
myself.
Lie to
myself. I'm going to lie to myself that things are really good. No, I didn't want to do that because then it was written in stone. So I had to, it was weird in my head. Well, again, I'm competitive. So I have, the light and the dark side fighting themselves.
Yeah.
And it got weird that night. I went to bed about 11 o'clock. And at 3:14 in the morning, I didn't understand the significance of this, but this has happened many times to me. 3:14. Exodus 3:14. Go read it.
Okay.
This became like the basis for who I am. It's super powerful. I'm still fighting myself at 3:14 in the morning. So you imagine 4 hours of this. There's like a rock concert. There's like heavy metal in my head and screaming at myself for 4 hours. Why can't you do this? You're the worst guy ever. It's so simple. You can't keep your word. You do this over and over again. Nobody can trust you. You're fake. You're a fraud. All this for 4 hours to the point where it was the closest I've ever come to suicide. I was all the way there to the point where, like, not just ideations, but like, dude, I have a gun, multiple guns. This would be so easy to turn it off finally and get some peace. And this is when God stuck his hand in my life again. And I didn't ask for it. It just came. I had this question. Why can't I get myself to do the thing that I know I need to do? How many times we ask this question of ourselves? Like, why can't I get myself to do the thing I know I need to do? There's something in your life right now, my life, or all of our lives, that we know needs attention, that we know needs focus, that we know needs productivity. Get it done. No matter what it is. Probably not business, but something else about yourself, about your family, about things that you care about your priorities in life that are neglected. And you've known it for a long time. And yet it still sits neglected. Why do we do that? So here I was. My journal was literally within arm's reach of me for the entire 4 hours of me beating on myself. Beautiful gallery leather journal with my Parker pen sitting right next to it. I had optimized all of those things. I loved the pen, the weight of the pen and how it wrote. Like I went and optimized that. I loved the journal to where I loved the journal so much that it gave me like dopamine just opening it, because you got the smell of the leather and you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I couldn't even reach over and pick it up. Why can't I get myself to write in my journal? And here's the answer. Seth, do you even believe that you are the type of person that writes in a journal? These were the words that came to my mind. And I don't know if they were audible or not. Doesn't matter. Those were the words that came to my mind. What do you think my answer was to that? I can't write in my journal to save my life. And I really need my life saved right now. And there was this weird peace that filled the room. And I got the answer. It just came like a download, as we would say. I got a download. I didn't call it that back then. I called it revelation. And I understood this was the problem. And my whole life, it's like one piece gets plugged in and then the circuit is completed. And then all of these other things make sense.
Yeah.
That's why the basketball, and that's why the real estate, and that's why this and this and this and this. Like, okay, what do I need to do now? Boom. Here's the next thing. Okay. So I immediately pick up my journal and I do exactly what I'm told to do. 967 days in a row, writing in my journal as if I was born doing it. Zero problems ever again.
Wow.
None.
Wow.
No second guessing, no doubt, no internal dialogue. Just normal. So, and it was 967 days in a row because I was camping with Boy Scouts. I didn't bring my phone, which I have a journal on my phone, and I forgot my journal at home. It's like, I can't write. There's nothing to write with, right? So normally, being how sadistic and how tightly wound I am in certain areas of my life, I would be wrecked by the fact that I missed day 968. Now my streak's over. I got nothing to fight for anymore. But the most magical thing happened. The next day, I just wrote in my journal like it's normal.
Wow.
Didn't care. In fact, I wasn't even tracking. I wasn't even tracking the days. I wasn't doing the Jerry Seinfeld where you just like, checking boxes on the calendar, right?
Yeah.
And this is where I started to figure how simple this game really is. And it's absolutely changed my life since then. So we got in, 967 days in a row. So we're into 2011. And this is when I transitioned to coaching. I had a marketing services business at the time, which was bringing me zero fulfillment in my life. I was good at it. I resented it. So people kept paying me. And I'm like, dude, stop paying me. I don't want to do this. Till finally I realized that I wasn't put here to do this. I was put here to open my mouth and lead people to somewhere inside of themselves that they're scared to go to. And so I fired all my clients in one day. I burned the business and I started coaching. I didn't even know what I was going to coach about. But then I was sitting, bless his soul, Brendan Burchard. I was sitting in his event in 2012. Wasn't paying attention to the darn thing that was being said. My mind was just floating. And I get this another piece of information. Like, why don't you figure out what happened in 2008, son? That was a kind of a special experience in your life. I never thought for a second that, number one, it would be useful to do that again in something else in my life, or that anybody would care what happened.
Okay. Yes.
This is my little thing.
Which has been a theme in your life. Nobody's going to
100%.
care.
Nobody's going to care.
I'm no big deal.
It's super hidden, right?
Yeah.
And so I spent the next year reverse engineering that, figuring out, what happened in 2008? What was essential? What were the conditions? Like boiling it down to the building blocks of this thing, like so that I could duplicate it again on purpose, not an accident, but on purpose. And I did. And I did it again and again and again. And then I started sharing it with other people. And then the first time I shared it out publicly was at a Rotary Club. I was, high class speaker, my friends. It's at a Rotary Club where 8 of them were old enough to be my great grandpa, but there were 2 younger guys like me. And one of them, he listened to my little spiel for 20 minutes. And it's like, that's one of the coolest things I've ever heard. I'm going to go home and do it. I'll let you know. I'm like, oh, I was embarrassed to share this. Why was I felt embarrassed. And that was the one piece of validation that changed my life. 2 weeks later, I get an email, and he followed up. I get an email back from him. He's like, hey, loved your presentation at the Rotary Club. I went and talked to my wife about it, and we implemented something in our marriage we've been struggling to implement our entire marriage, which for them was getting up at 5 a.m. and reading scripture together as a married couple. That's a huge life change.
Yeah.
And y'all we got lots of kids. You got kids.
Yeah. I
can't even imagine syncing up everything in life to be able to pull that off. And they'd done it for the straight 2 weeks. Like, okay, cool. My wife's a volleyball coach, and she'd love you to come speak to her team. How much would that cost? Okay. The first time I opened my mouth about this, I become a paid speaker. Like the only thing I talked about prior to that was marketing. Like whenever I go speak at an event, I'm always talking about, search engine optimization, which is, it's really hard to make that sound interesting and fun. But this was totally different. So I went and I talked to these 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. 3 state championships in a row from this squad. And I was their guy. I came and spoke to them every year. I showed up at certain games, and it was awesome. So that was my first clue to, like, Seth, this is something. And so I've put that as the centerpiece for what I do. I put it into an experience. I started delivering this one-on-one with clients for free, just to make sure it's going to test this, that it works. Yeah. First person I charged was $6,000 right out of the gate. Went up to $15,000 for 4 phone calls.
Love it.
That's how I delivered it at the time. And until eventually, because I am, I love automation, I love email. I have a whole program about that stuff. Yeah. But I automated it. I automated a coaching experience so that anybody can participate in it, and pretty much free, and have that experience. And that's what the Breakthrough Challenge is about, breakthroughchallenge.com. So all of this came back through the basketball experience. Yeah. And has led through, and to boil things down to the simplest ingredients possible. Yeah, and it's been super life-changing. So there's the story. That's one of them. There's many more, but that's the genesis story of how all this came to be. Like, I think I'm smart in some ways, but I'm not book smart.
It's still hard for you to own that, isn't it? I think I'm smart in some ways.
It's hard. I'm very smart in certain ways. I've never been gifted with research, science, data. Always struggle. I have struggled my whole life with those things. So I have some issues about that. So I learn mostly by being the crash test dummy. in my own life. And I'm so OCD and difficult. Like I'm the worst client I've ever had. And I treat myself that way. Not that I'm the worst, but I treat myself as if I am a client. And I am the craft that I'm working on every day. And that needs my attention, and it needs my focus, and it needs my growth. And at the end of the day, that's the only thing that matters in my business. Because when I am who I am and I show up that way, clients just fall out of the sky, effortless. And when I'm not that way, guess what happens? Dries up every single time. So we go through this thing, and I'm a good marketer. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
My ads stop working. But when I'm in a good space, my ads crush. So what craft am I going to beat on, as we would say? And Kobe Bryant, because you beat on your craft. Basketball was his craft, right? There's different components of that. I'm already good at beating on myself in a negative context. But if I can make myself the Michelangelo that I can chisel away at, this is essentially what I believe. Like, I already am my own greatness. I just need to allow that to show up every day. There's nothing more that I can be. I already am it. So getting my mind and my heart to step aside so that the truth of who I am can live every day, that's all that really matters. And when I do that, business just happens, flows. Now, flow is a weird word for me. I know what flow feels like.
That's your marketing system right there. That's your marketing system. Get Seth aligned, get Seth in a place of flow, and everything works, right? Your emails work, your ads work, clients come to you. But when you are not in that place, all of a sudden it stops working.
It's a disaster.
Luckily, I believe this big time. Same.
Yeah. I have split tested this even.
I love it.
and I have literally split tested this because I'm not somebody that likes, I'm an athlete. I like tangible stuff.
Yeah.
As soon as something gets non-tangible or internal, like we freak out. Like you have to become comfortable with this because it's who you are. But and as an entrepreneur and as an athlete, we get labeled, this man has no feelings. You cannot feel. This man has no emotions. He is emotionless. And I've been told my whole life that I can't feel things. So when you talk about flow and feelings, it feels weird. Like I don't know how to feel. And so many entrepreneurs are in this space where we can't ask for help. We don't know how to feel.
Yes.
And these two things show up in so many different ways.
Yes.
But when I say I followed my intuition. I'm pretty good at my intuition, by the way, despite feeling. Intuition is a feeling. And I never gave myself credit for that. But I can pray and get an answer like this. And I never gave my credit for feeling when it comes to intuition. That's why I burned all my ships, because I was told to do that. I wouldn't have been able to function otherwise. And God knows that. So he said, it's time to make the transition. Okay. Burn. Anyway.
Seth, I've got a question for you. I'm really curious about, because I really appreciate you taking the time to really externalize and vocalize that internal critic, that high tolerance for pain, that inability to feel, like all of those things. I think so many high-performing entrepreneurs can really relate to, and yet we don't hear about it very much because everyone's trying to hide from it.
Right?
Yeah. Do you know what was, and at the same time, you were like, obviously super talented, super gifted, but didn't have the ability to kind of own that, right? Do you know what your fear was? Like, if I owned that, what would happen? Like, if I just admit that I'm an exceptional basketball player, or that I'm a really exceptional business coach, Do you know what the fear is? Like what's in your mind owning that, then what's the catastrophic thing that happens?
I could never live up to my own expectations.
Mm.
For me, this was huge because being that you're perfectionistic, that you only allow perfection. If you were to claim any level of perfection, you're setting yourself up for disaster. And I know this internally. So what it does is it erodes your commitment. So you only like step in just a little bit instead of all the way, because if I step in all the way, at some point I'm going to blow this up and it's going to cost me in huge ways that I don't think I want to pay.
Wow.
And this is why commitment is one of the core ingredients. It's the rarest currency in the world.
Yeah.
Full commitment of self is the rarest currency in the world. It is so fleeting and rare. What we don't realize is as soon as you fully commit, the universe bends immediately. And
all of a sudden your Facebook ads start working.
And oh my gosh, all of a sudden stuff starts to work. Like it's the weirdest thing. Like I've literally had the same ads running. I'm in a weird space. They don't work. And I finally get everything all right. And I'm clear. I realign all my chakras. And the same ads just start working. I don't know how to explain that. And it doesn't matter what platform. It doesn't matter what platform.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I'm not the greatest ad man. Traffic and ads is not my greatest strength. Doesn't matter. Like you can write a really terrible ad and have it do well. Granted, there are mechanical, strategic things that are important that you should always do. So you can't write a terrible ad on Facebook and have it work, but you can write a decent one.
Yeah.
And it works just fine. Or you can write a post and have it go viral. I just had case in point, February 2nd or 3rd this year, I had another 3:14 in the morning thing. So the thing about the Breakthrough Challenge is it's an automated coaching experience that feels very intimate and connective and as if I am one-on-one coaching them. It's remarkable. And I've never taught how I do that. I'm very strategic with it and I do it on purpose. I did every little thing on that on purpose. Some things I did on accident that tend to work well. But I gamified this challenge back in 2014 when nobody was doing this stuff. Like nobody had challenges.
Yeah.
Yeah. My first iteration in 2014 was like super, super different. And now it's just, we're working on 4.0.
That's so cool.
Which is pretty amazing. But I never taught that how to do it because I'm just, the mindset. I'm the mindset guy. But 3:14 in the morning, spring out of bed, got this download again, revelation from God. I give God the credit because he's the boss. He's the head office. He just says it's time. And I knew exactly what he meant. So the next day, literally the next morning, I went to an EMDR appointment, which if y'all don't know, you should know. It's one of the very impactful modalities that I've ever experienced. And I've experienced a lot of them to help me get through my own trauma. Went to an EMDR appointment. And for whatever reason, we nailed something that day that I just felt different. And some pieces realigned. So we had the 3:14 a.m. the night before EMDR appointment. And I came home and in 20 minutes, I wrote this post. That post went viral. Thousands and thousands of dollars and hundreds of clients fall out of the sky. And I'm like, oh, and it was on my personal Facebook profile, which is the hardest thing in the world to get attention to right now. 900 plus comments. I'm like, okay,
Sheesh.
I guess it's time to do this. So I've been teaching that. It's how this stuff works for me sometimes. Anyway, there is a mechanical. I don't want to say there is not a mechanical side to marketing, but I have the distinct privilege of having an overactive mind that is also powerful. And I think we all have that same privilege. So when my mind is not aligned, it destroys. And it destroys real well. It does that so well. When I leave my mind to itself, it focuses on different things that don't serve me.
Mm-hmm.
So my job is to keep everything pointed in what I call a direction. And anyway, we can.
Seth. I feel like we just got started.
Right?
Like,
this
course,
is like the intro story.
Of course you were the one who popped up in my feed. Of course, I knew nothing about you and had my assistant reach out to you and say, get that guy on my podcast. Like, now that I've spent an hour with you talking, of course, like what you are saying absolutely resonates with me. And anybody who's not watching on YouTube, I mean, I was getting emotional. You were emotional because I've had those moments too, right? Of darkness, of emptiness. I think so many people who are listening right now can really resonate, and I really appreciate you calling attention to the things that might not logically make sense, and yet they're real and true. And even though you don't have or the science, the logic, explain why it works, have vocalized that it does. Admit it. And I see like the important thing of your business, you be aligned. Those things. Not the anyways, to do those things, to prioritize them, then literally things fall into place. They fall into place. And it doesn't make sense to a lot of people, and people might write it off and say, well, that's just Seth, and that doesn't apply to me. And I know, because I've talked to thousands of entrepreneurs, like, no, it's real, it's true, and it works. So what's working now? Everything that Seth just shared with us, that's what's working now. That is what's working now. And what you shared with us are true principles. It's not a hack. It's not a trick. It's not the easy answer, right? Nobody wants to look internal. That's the last thing they want to do. It's the last thing. Terrifying. We're going to do everything we can to avoid going inward. And you have learned through your high tolerance of pain that that's the greatest opportunity. It's the greatest way to grow your business. Mm-hmm. Surprise.
It's the only direction to go.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a fascinating journey.
It is. Yeah. And I'm sure you have not arrived, as neither have I.
No way.
Right. And still every day. Yeah. Still every day you're facing that vast abyss, and you're making the decision to go internal, not because you want to, not because it's easy, not because it's comfortable, but because you know ultimately it's what helps you have peace. Yeah. It's what helps you have fulfillment, and it's what helps you have purpose in your life. So I really appreciate 100%. You really slowing things down and telling us all those stories.
Yeah, no worries. That's what I mean by I am my craft. Craft is not something you arrive at, and it's not necessarily something you perfect, but it's something that you chip away at every day. That becomes your main focus of working on yourself. Like when I work on myself, everything else gets better. Every now and then, like things blow up because you uncover something within yourself that you don't want to see. And you're like, oh, shoot, this one's going to hurt. And then you bear the pain, But this kind of pain is different.
Yep.
It's a healing pain. It's a pain that gives you the spice of life. The very thing that you have been missing is the balm that heals an open wound. Not just put a Band-Aid on it. It heals it. It's still painful, but it is a pain that is worth bearing over and over and over again. Because every time you heal a little bit of a little thing, you're honing your craft. And for the longest time, I could not figure out what my craft was, Katie. This was weird because basketball is real simple. It's basketball. And I loved honing that craft. Like I was a gym rat, hours and hours and hours every day. Nobody ever, not once had to ask me to work out. Nobody had to tell me to go to the gym. I naturally did it. Like, this is where I belong. This is my thing. This is my craft. Take that away. Then what? Now where's my craft? Is it real estate? Is it marketing? Is it sales? Is it copywriting? Is it email? Is it automation? Is it coaching? Is it coaching coaches who coach coaches who coach as well?
This is why you hate labels, by the way.
It's like, exactly why.
Yeah.
I don't freaking know. I'm just Seth. At the end of the day, I don't know what that craft is. I have a whole bunch of skills.
Yeah.
I should not exist in the marketing world because I can pretty much do everything very well, except traffic. That's the one I've always struggled with. Everything else, I'm good. I'll
traffic
hold myself
and chakras,
against.
you already told us.
I know. And that's the only part of traffic that I'm actually good at is aligning things, right? But when I look at myself, I am the common denominator in everything in my life. Why am I not the main focus, the craft? Now, how we go about this, there's 100 bajillion different ways of doing that. I use God, and I use myself, and I use my wife, and I use facilitators. But to me, it's me and God. That's the main deal. It's like I am honing my craft so that my craft can become like his craft. And at some point, hopefully, we get a little bit closer together. So that's how I see this. And it has simplified everything. I don't have any more questions. I don't care about bios. In fact, if you want to hear this clearly, this is why I do it this way. My bio is written on your heart. And if it's not written on your heart, you're not my person, and that's okay. But you will feel who I am through your heart, because that's where my words go when they come out of my mouth. They go straight to your heart. And that is because I beat on my craft in this way. And I do it soft and gentle nowadays. But I'm incessant. And I invite all of you to look at life this way. You are your craft. You are the only thing that you bring to the table every day. That's always the same. It's always you. You always have the same ability, characteristics, gifts, talents that are available to you every day. And we need to choose to pick them up and to use them purposefully, to not just make a difference out there, but to show up as your truest and highest self. So your craft is removing all the stuff that's not you, so that the truth of who you are can live every day. That's the greatest craft there is.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Anything else we can say?
No, like that is it.
And if y'all want like the nitty gritty of the simple version of things I've figured out, just go to breakthroughchallenge.com. My sales letter is actually a really long story and an article of the framework that I use. And I teach the whole thing on there. It's the craziest thing ever. I use this principle called superhuman nature. I'm not superhuman, but human nature is. Lots of times we look at human nature as if it's a curse. Why did God give me this flesh and bones? It's destroying my life. I know what that feels like. I've been addicted to human things. We all are to some degree. But there's a version of human nature. There's a trait of human nature that is a superpower that we all have as humans, and nobody is talking about it. And it's mind-blowing how simple it is. I share that with you at thebreakthroughchallenge.com. I also talk about the almost life. In all my years of marketing, this is the very best thing I've ever figured out, because it encapsulates how I've felt for so many years in lots of different areas of my life. You're only ever almost there and never arriving. Almost a good husband. I'm divorced. She couldn't handle the life of almosts and a bunch of other things. Almost a good dad. Almost a good business owner. Almost successful. And almost a Division I athlete. And how do you go from almost to all the way? The thing that you start with, my friends, is to take your human nature that heretofore has been destroying you and partner with it instead of fighting it. And magic happens. That's gate number one. You step into that gate, there is an unlimited possibility. But you fight human nature, you will lose. You find a way to partner with this, and this has changed everything. This is how I went from dude who can't write in his journal for 5 days in a row to 967 in a row, as if I was born doing it. Partner with human nature instead of fighting it. So all those principles, that's the tactical. I know y'all like tactics and strategies. It's simple, my friends. It's simple. Simple, 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 simple. The principles are so simple, they are endless in their complications. And that's the kind of simplicity I love.
Yeah.
So simple, they're always the answer. Always.
Yeah.
Anyway, this has
simple,
been a trip.
I like to say simple, yet very profound.
Extremely profound. Like it's the deepest thing ever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So can I give you one little nugget, my favorite framework?
Give me the nugget.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Because I know we've been talking a lot about stories. This is a framework. There's two parts to it. Going through all my stuff, I realized that the only two ingredients that are always present are two things. How I perceive myself, which is my identity, and choices. There is nothing else that is always present. So I'm like, okay, if I can use certain levels of identity with proportionate and exacting levels of choice, I can use those to point at anything I want and chart my way there and guarantee that I get it. And all that needs to be made is an identity and a choice based in that identity. So I came up with this silly little framework that becomes the basis for most everything that I do in coaching. Choice-based identity. I choose my identity. And identity-based choices. I make choices in alignment with the identity that I choose. You use those two things and you have what we call an eternal round. It just keeps going in any direction you want. And it's the most simple and profound things I've ever figured out. And it's not a new concept, by the way. Like these are eternal things. Like this is the very basis of the universe is written in these principles. I had to figure this out the hard way, and I was never taught it like this because I was taught all the 47 gabillion, 5711 different ways of tapping myself into success.
Yeah.
And none of that stuff ever worked for me until I chose my identity. I write in my journal every day because that is who I am, period. I choose my identity. And then I make simple, everyday, frictionless choices. I write my journal. Why? Because this is what I do. I go to the gym. I work out. Why? That's just what I do. I'm an athlete. Duh. Somebody offers me meat. I say no because I'm vegan. I'm not vegan, but it's an example of a really strong identity.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, why is saying no to one of the most delicious, amazing things so easy for you? Like, I'm a red meat guy. I love it. I don't understand that level of identity, but to them, frictionless, no big deal because they're vegan.
Mm-hmm.
So choice-based identity and identity-based choices. You use those as a tool, no matter what you've got going on in your life. It's always the answer. Always, always 100%. It may not be the answer you want.
No.
And the reason why is because it leaves you absolutely splayed open on the floor, vulnerable, with your guts ripped open, because you got nobody to blame but yourself, because that's the answer. There's nothing left to do but to do it. Why is it that we can't get ourselves to do the things that we know we need to do? Because our identity is off. You're trying to be somebody that you're not. That's it. Simple. It's the simplest thing ever. Why can't you get
Or you're
yourself
trying to be somebody that you believe you're not.
Yep.
Right?
And you have those conflicting beliefs.
Yeah.
Right?
Like that's what broke your feet.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. That was an identity issue for me.
You couldn't
identity was
choose to take on that identity. Yeah.
I wasn't aware.
Right.
So,
you weren't aware. And what a great gift, because now you're here teaching us. Now you're
That's
helping
right.
so many incredible people. Like you're not
and it makes it
still
okay.
living. You're not living a lie anymore. No, it's a gift. It's literally a gift to you,
It is.
to your beautiful wife, to your children, to us. So thank you.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to go through hell if I come out with something that serves other people. And I usually do, because I take notes while I'm in hell. And I have those notes when I come out of hell, which is inevitable because I don't freaking quit ever.
Yeah.
I will always come out the other side. And that's an identity thing, just like anything else. So we can go back around this, circle around this over and over and over again. But as you read breakthroughchallenge.com, you're going to see this is everywhere. Choice-based identity.
Yes.
Who are you?
Yes.
Who do you choose to be? You can even use this like my friend Todd Herman does. Put it on like a shirt. Take it off when you're done. It is so powerful. You can use it contextually as an alter ego.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. And it works because you can choose your identity in any given moment.
Yeah.
On a whole bunch of different levels. And that's where it gets fun in practical sense, is applying this stuff. It's like a canvas and you have paintbrushes and you can paint anything you want with it.
Seth,
anyway,
my heart is full. You have taught us greatly. And I am just super appreciative that you floated into my world through something that I hate, which is Facebook.
Right? Oh my gosh. I'm so done with it. I can't wait till Elon Musk buys Twitter. If Elon Musk buys Twitter, I might move over there.
The whole way I found you, like I hate Facebook so much that I have newsfeed eradicator. So I was like, I want some more fascinating people on my podcast. And I was like, let me go on Facebook. And I couldn't even scroll because I've eliminated my newsfeed. And I was like, dang it. And so I just opened up, who are my friends? And I started at least scrolling through that. I'm like, who's this guy? And I clicked on you. Seriously. And you were the only name I wrote down. And here we are.
Fascinating.
Yeah. Fascinating.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
That is
not
a coincidence.
Me up. No, not an accident, not a coincidence.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you for being who you are. It's nice to meet you.
Yeah, you too.
And I hopefully this has served you and your
Yeah.
That's my intention.
Yeah. And I know, like, We know a lot of the same people. So someday our paths
I don't know
will
how it is that
cross.
I'd never
I
even
know.
heard of you, which is
I
weird
know,
because
same.
I know
Same.
everybody. It's like never anyway. I'm glad we met. Super awesome.
I've
I don't
done
know
a good
everybody.
job
I know a
of
lot of
like
people.
staying in my own little world for a long time.
Nice.
Yeah, but it's actively changing.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, it looks good on you.
Thanks. Seth Ellsworth, thank you so much for the show. And for everybody listening, he has shared exactly what is working now.